can crack the code or we can pick the lock. And we need to crack the code, because if we can do that, we can show up again and again, even with, the unexpected adversities and curveballs that we're going to get thrown. We have to know our own formula. We have to know how to repeat our success, and it won't be something that is the same each year, But if we have that mutual commitment, and we have the awareness that we have so much to learn, we have to be extremely humble about what we're doing, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe. Up to this point in the offseason, we've heard from all of the Thunder players. We've heard from Thunder head coach Mark Dagnall, but one person that we hadn't heard from was Thunder general manager Sam Presti, and we have now gotten the chance to talk to him. Truly, the end of season exit interviews are not complete until you hear from Sam Presti.
That's right. He really does a nice job of not just putting a bow on the season that was, but setting the table for what's to come. And each year, these sessions are a little bit different in the sense of like how philosophical they are versus how, kind of bread and butter they are, and some of those basic things that people need to know about the team and the direction. And you kind of get a little bit of a mix of that throughout the course of these sessions. Sam's this year was about 2.5 hours long, and he'll sit there and he'll answer every single question. He, will have a little bit of a statement. This time he saved that for the end, where he really is able to kind of speak to the fan base. He understands, how much passion and pride exists here in Oklahoma City. And so he wants to kind of be able to deliver a message to them in addition to the questions that he answers to the media.
Well, we're recording this on Wednesday, May 29th. That means Sam spoke yesterday. And as you mentioned, at length yesterday, about 2.5 hours, and answered a bunch of questions, and there was so much to take away. But one of the biggest themes, you heard it right there off the top, and it was probably one of the quotes that stuck with both of us the most, and the one that he kind of repeated throughout his entire press conference, and that was this concept of cracking the code versus picking the lock. And this Thunder team, this organization, wants to be one that cracks the code.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying here is, this amazing season, this remarkable season, historic season, and postseason run is over now.
Yeah.
And this Thunder team made an appearance in the playoffs. They were the youngest team ever to earn a number 1 seed in a conference, youngest team ever to win 57 games. They won a first-round series 4-0. But ultimately, the challenge only gets harder. It only gets more stiffer and more complicated from here because of external forces, teams really loading up and trying to deal with the problem that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And so what OKC needs to do is not be, a one-trick pony to some extent and say, okay, we were able to do that one time. To really prove it now, they've got to go out and try to replicate that success next season. And that is going to take a level of humility and maturity. And I thought that this was a great way to sort of set the table heading into the summer, because there's so many people, for good reason, because this was such an exciting year, who are ready to say, okay, the Thunder is now this fully formed thing, and this is what they're going to be like. They're going to make these types of postseason runs every single year from here on out. And Sam, having done this for a long time now, recognizes the realities of having to put one foot in front of the next each year, and you're not just, handed that. One of the phrases that he uses later on is, there's no silver platters here in Oklahoma City. Being a small market, one of the smallest, you're not going to be able to just waltz into another 57-win season next year. You've got to be able to actually understand who you are to do all of that again in circumstances that are going to be different.
And as you mentioned, it takes patience, it takes intentionality, and as this organization has done through its entire run here in Oklahoma City, doing it without cutting any corners. You really can't short step the process here. And Sam is very, very intentional about laying that out from the outset, even at this point where this team has, acquired some success this season. He's very adamant, said it several times throughout the press conference, that promises you nothing for next season. And so you have to have the same approach. You have to have that same intentionality and patience going into the next season. So as we spoke so long with Sam Presti during this interview, we have a couple of quotes that stood out to each of us as well. We're going to do a little section of You Can Shai That Again with Mr. Sam Presti. Nick, I'll let you go first. What was one of the quotes that stood out to you?
The quote that I really liked was, we have a lot of guys who are ambitious but don't have an agenda. And he kind of went on to say, we don't want people who want the wind at their back all the time. And I think what he's saying there is, we want guys who are going to be willing to do what's right for the team, and do what's right for the team no matter whether things are going well for them personally or not.
I think he brought up a couple of guys as an example of this. He used Chet as an example.
Mm-hmm.
That guy eats, lives, breathes, sleeps basketball, right? This guy is just all about the game and is very ambitious, very ambitious. No one can deny that about Chet, but he has no agenda outside of what the team needs, what this team's goals are together. And that's a very fine line, especially for young players to walk, where you want to be great. You want to do great things, but you have to recognize, in order to be successful on a team with a team, you have to put those, individual ambitions aside and focus on the ambitions of the team. And that's exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah, and you think about a player like Cason Wallace, who's another one that he brought up, of being a totally agendaless player. He's just making the play that's right in front of him. That can be a micro factor of just like how you actually execute within the game. It can also be a macro factor in terms of how a guy carries themselves, how the guy, hangs around the team, how they operate within the team. Going back to your point on Chet, he mentioned just in the talent sort of scouting process, when he went to watch Chet at Gonzaga with, more veteran team around him, he was this, young freshman, highly prized prospect. And Chet acted like he was the 15th guy. And he was just, one of the guys on the team. And that said a lot to Sam about how he would integrate into a professional environment.
It kind of brought me back to, if you remember at the start of the season, I believe, Sam brought up this idea of a mixing board.
Yes.
And how everyone can't be cranked up to, 10 and 11 at the same time because you can't hear anything. It sounds terrible. Some guys have to be turned down so that other guys can be turned up. There are just so many different, levels essentially, but it all requires these guys to make sacrifices, all of these guys to make sure that the goal and the focus is on the team, not on themselves, but to make sure they're bringing their best self to the team. And that's where the ambition comes in, because all of these guys, very, very ambitious, really, really adamant about improving, getting better, developing, focusing on that sort of ambition within themselves, but to make sure that the whole goal is always about the group.
And this is one of those good problems. So don't view this as a negative. But that job, the mixing board job, gets even harder next season.
For sure.
When J-Dub is in year 3. Jay Will is in year 3. Chet Holmgren's in year 2. I mean, these guys who are still finding themselves as players, Josh Giddey's in his 4th year as well. Like, these players who are still learning their games are sort of sorting out what type of player they're going to continue to be.
Right.
And that's why Sam says, like, this year's team is over. We have to be ready and kind of be ahead of the team on what this group is going to be like next year, because they're all going to evolve and change.
It was a really good quote that you chose. Like, I kind of forgot about that one before our podcast. So that was a really good one that you chose. Here is my Shai That Again from this press conference. Sam said, sometimes when you don't know where it is you're headed or what the final result will be, it helps you know where you are. And I think we're in a good place. I really like this quote from Sam. This was towards the end of his press conference. He gave a very long kind of list of thank yous and kind of closing thoughts at the end of his press conference. And this was one of them. And it stood out to me because it was the level of humility that we've always seen from Sam of like, look, I'm going to sit in this very same seat in September, and I have no idea what things are going to look like come that time. But if I look at where we are right now, to use Coach Dagnall's term, if I am where my feet are right now, and I look around, I really like where we're at. Yeah. And knowing the motivation of each of these guys to go out in the summer and get better, knowing that, we're in a really good spot, whether it's new additions, whether it's these guys just coming back better players, this will be a very different looking team. I don't know what that looks like, but I like where we're at right now, and I like the direction we're heading. I just really like that quote.
I love it too, and I think just orienting yourself and understanding who you are and where you are is massive. I mean, it's no surprise. And I love the quote that you picked because I think it's really spot on in terms of like understanding the Thunder organization and the Thunder's thinking. Yes, they lean into the analytics and they want to know every fact that you can possibly know. But if you listen to Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault talk, they are really into social science and the understanding of human beings, the understanding of people. And one of the things that you have to know about yourself as a human being to feel, poised, to feel ready to attack new challenges is to know where you are. And you can't be like flying willy-nilly without having a true understanding of what you have. He talks about this in team building as well. It's one thing to say this is what we need. It's much more important to know what you have.
Exactly.
And that's really rooted in a lot of what you pulled out there. So great quote there.
It was great stuff from Sam. And I love the perspective, and Coach Daigneault does this as well. We hear it from Sam of just like, we don't know everything. Like you can get as much data and information as you possibly want. You can take in as much information from as many different sources as you want. But at the end of the day, we really have no clue. We can't see the future. That is a fact. And he brought it up. He was telling a story about, I believe, scouting. Yeah. And at some point, he just kind of said, look, we're all guessing. At the end of the day, we're all guessing. And so it's just about making sure that you recognize where you are, what you have, and going out and just putting one foot in front of the other, like you mentioned. So that was kind of the tone of the whole press conference, in my opinion, of just like answering a lot of questions. But there were a few really kind of bigger takeaways that we wanted to talk about. The first one that I wanted to bring up is this concept that Sam brought up that said, the best players are secure players. And I love this quote from him. And the guy that he brought up when he was talking about it was Shai. And he said, Shai is a secure player.
And the context of all of this was, Sam has now been at the helm here with the Thunder organization for almost 2 decades. Yeah. And he's been doing this for a very long time. He's seen a ton of success even before he got to this organization in San Antonio. And he's seen some really high-level players, some Hall of Fame level players. The Thunder has some guys now in Shai, and you can add whichever names to the list that you want to on this, who have aspirations. When we talked about players who are really ambitious, they have aspirations to be in those types of conversations down the line. This is still so very early in the process for all of them, but the context is, which types of, what separates these great players from one another. And he was saying it's the secure players. It's the guys who are confident in what they've built and not looking over their shoulder, wondering if someone else thinks that what they've built is cool or what they're doing is cool. It's somebody that understands like, hey, I'm doing this my way because I like to do it my way. And we're doing this way as a group because we think it's the right thing to do, not because of what other people might think.
All of these guys, as a collective, they're all running their own race. And this is something that is required of a very young team that wants to do great things. We heard the word uncommon a million times. And so if you want to be a young team to do great things, you got to do things a little bit differently. You can't be looking over your shoulder left and right, seeing what other teams are doing, what other organizations are doing. You got to run your race. And on a granular level with Shai, Sam pointed out that, look, Shai's really proud of what he built here. Like you sleep better in a house where you put up the beams yourself. And I thought that was a really good analogy. But to his point, Shai's been here since day one of all of this, of the restart and the restructuring here. And Shai has been a part of all of it. He's seen it all. And looking around, I feel like Sam is saying, like, he's really proud of where this team is at now and the hand that he had in it.
Yeah, Sam even kind of had to remind everybody, like, I know that we didn't draft him, but it really feels like Shai started his career here. Obviously, Shai had an amazing 82-game season his rookie year with the LA Clippers, but after he came to the Thunder, things were just different around here in terms of the trajectory of the team, the responsibility that was handed to him. The arc of Shai's career and the Thunder's arc are really in lockstep. The arc of Mark Daigneault and Shai's arc and the Thunder's arc very much in that same pathway right now. And so that's it's been a really cool marriage, and I think that's something that Sam hinted to as well, is like, what you need from a star player and
Yeah.
an organization is what we see around the league in some really, solid, stable places, is almost, as deep a commitment as you can possibly have to one another, to say like, hey, we are in this, we're in it for the long haul, and the peaks and the valleys that we're going to go through.
Yeah.
I think Sam even said
in sickness
in
and in
sickness
health.
and in health. And guess what? That's coming. All of that is coming.
For
the
sure.
health is coming. You never know what point in the timeline that you're on
Yeah.
that. Certainly the Thunder had great physical health during the season this year, so
Yes.
that was something to really be grateful for. And so you just never know what those things might be that you're going to bump up against, or go down the slide on, and just be along coasting for the ride on. And so these are the things that really stand out to Sam about these players that have been able to make those types of commitments, be solid in them, and then carry forward success with an organization.
And obviously, we've seen the improvement that Shai has made from his first season with the Oklahoma City Thunder to where he is right now, finishing second in MVP voting, leading the league in steals. I mean, the accolades go on and on and on. And so it's really, really encouraging to think about the continued growth and the continued improvement, knowing who Shai is as a player and the type of person he is, how driven and motivated he is. Really, really encouraging for the future for SGA and this team as a whole. Another person that you mentioned, Coach Dagnall, another guy with a bunch of accolades this season, because he finished as both the Coaches Association Coach of the Year, voted on by his peers, and also voted on by the media, NBA Coach of the Year. And I loved what Sam had to say, because he was obviously asked about Coach, and a guy who's also been with this, team through all of the ups and downs and the trajectory from the very outset. And Sam said, you want a coach that loves players, not coaching. There's a very big difference there. And Nick, I want you to help decode this a little bit, because what I think we all know about Coach Dagnall, he's a great teacher, right? He's very great, interpersonal communication, very good at explaining things and getting players to buy into things. But when he says you want a coach that loves players, not coaching, what exactly do you feel like Sam was getting at there?
I think this goes to one of the Thunder's philosophies, and something that Mark Dagnall talks about a lot, which is we walk alongside our players. We don't tell them what to do. We don't seek compliance from them. We don't want obedience from them. We are here to help them live out their dream. And in doing that, what all of these players dream of is being the best player that they can possibly be and winning as much as they can possibly win. That is at the heart what a competitor and an athlete is all about. And so you want to love those people that you're walking alongside. If you're going to be on this journey doing that, you really want to love them and not love the fact that you get to point them in the direction that you want them to go. He had kind of a little moment there before he said that quote. What do you think was maybe swirling around in there, just from understanding their relationship?
I think looking at Coach Dagnall and recognizing his history with the organization, his first ever, foray into the NBA was with the Thunder organization, with the G League. You have to remember that. I mean, Nick, you were the first guy to talk to him probably in the organization way back when. And during that time, I feel like Sam recognized this about Mark, because if you're going to coach a G League team, you have to be as appreciative of a player as anyone, right? It's less about the X's and O's and more about recognizing, all right, these guys are fighting for their NBA lives. You have to get them all pointed in the same direction and pulling in the same direction. And that takes a very, very special and unique person. And I'll never forget this. When we were talking to Mark, might have been last year, honestly. And someone asked, how did the G League help you in the NBA? And his response was recognizing that these aren't just players, they're people.
Yeah.
And one thing that weighed exceptionally heavy on me was like roster cuts.
Yeah.
Because in the G League, you cut a guy and that's it for them.
That's probably the end of the line.
That's probably the end of the line. You were holding their NBA and basketball careers in a way in your hand, and you can't be flippant about that. Right. You can't be, you have to be very intentional about that. And so that's something that I feel like he's carried with him, that intentionality, that appreciation for a player and their individual dreams, their individual goals, their individual aspirations, and people that are, relying on them. They all have their own worlds that they're dealing with. And to your point, I think he's learned that in order to best get these guys pointed in the same direction, you have to walk alongside them with everything that's surrounding them.
Sam talked about pride and passion a lot in this talk, and we'll get to that as it relates to the fans, but he used the word passion about somebody else right before he said this quote about Mark Daigneault, and it was about Bill Walton. And he was asked about Bill Walton, who recently just passed, obviously Hall of Fame basketball player, incredible broadcaster as well. And Sam said he didn't know Bill Walton, but he was just sort of thinking about Bill while he was on a run. And he said, "I've never heard anybody articulate their passion for basketball better than Bill Walton." Yeah. And it was sort of in the come down from that answer, as he was saying Bill Walton had a chance to play for John Wooden, and Wooden was somebody that was a great example of the difference between a teacher and a coach. And it was just sort of the quote that he had about Mark was this really nice coda to this whole thing about Bill Walton and John Wooden. And it was not prompted. He'd talked about Mark at a different stage of the proceedings. And so I thought that was cool that he kind of offered that up on his own.
And I think that helps explain why we've seen Coach Daigneault have the success that he's had in his time with this organization, and why the players have rallied around him. Why you see J-Dub wearing a Mark Daigneault t-shirt while warming up. These guys are just, they really appreciate everything that he brings to the table. And I think that he reciprocates all of that back to the guys. And it's a really good relationship all the way around, up and down the organization. Another big takeaway, and this came off a question that I asked, but Sam said, look, it all comes from the players. They're joyful, they're optimistic, and fun to be around. He also went on to say, you don't have to lighten up this group.
No.
They
already have plenty of a pep in their step.
They're totally fine. There have been, teams where you have to go out there and kind of like try to break the ice a little bit. These guys, no, they're already joyful, happy, and, excited to come to work every day. And that was off of my question of just like what his perspective was of the chemistry of this team. Then I loved his answer because he was like, look, every team's different. And like every year is something different. There's been the Stash Bros, there was, Thunder U, and this year it's all about the barking, And so like every year is something, but the best thing about it is that it all comes from the players.
Yeah, he said, it doesn't matter to him what the kind of the tenor and the personality and the tone of the team is, as long as it's authentic to them and it's coming from them. It's not top down. I mean, we think about culture, it's bottom up, not top down imposed from on high. And so I think Sam has really gotten a nice grasp on being able to set an environment for the players to create their own culture, if that makes sense. And there's, of course, some guardrails to make sure things don't get too silly and don't get too serious. He shared some stories about those things that, are massive tangents and rabbit holes that we probably won't go down. But it involves him dressing up in some of Russell Westbrook's clothes.
Gold lion medallion was included. If you want to hear it, it's all on YouTube, on the OKC Thunder YouTube channel. Please, if you want to hear it, just go listen to it.
But basically, the feeling is, this has to come from the guys, and it did this year, and that's why it permeated to the fans the way that it did. That's why our arena and social media and everything was so captured by it, was because it was completely organic, and it was not, some top-down imposed thing. That's what made all of this so special, that it just sort of bubbled up from underneath.
It made me smile because in every single end of season interview with each of the guys, when they were asked about just kind of, how fun was it this season? They would all start beaming. They would all start smiling, and they would basically say it was a joy to come to work every day. And that's so tough to accomplish when stakes are high, when so many different, people with different ambitions are involved, But as we mentioned, this is a very uncommon group. And I think when all of these guys set those individual ambitions aside and focused on the group, focused on the team, that's where you get a lot of this stuff. And it helps that, a lot of them are around the same age as well.
For sure.
That probably helped a little bit.
Basically, the vast majority of the rotation in the postseason are all 25 and younger.
Exactly.
And it's just remarkable that these guys, and I just cannot believe that there's still this runway that exists. And I think that's, to Sam's point, it's not guaranteed that we can just have this happen again.
Right.
They've got to replicate all of this, including a culture that bubbles up naturally that might look different than this year. So if there's not barking next season, or there's not, X, Y, and Z, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means that this group has morphed and matured into maybe something a little bit different, or maybe they morph into something even sillier. We just don't know. We have no idea what to expect, and we can't prescribe it and we can't predict it.
Exactly. You just have to let it unfold naturally as it happens. A couple more takeaways. One of the bigger ones that I wrote down was when Sam pointed out that we lost 58 games 2 years ago and we won 57 this year. That in itself kind of gave me pause and was like, oh my gosh. This team has come a long way over 2 seasons, which is incredible. But he went on to say, I'm not surprised that we're not a fully complete and perfect team. Like it was he almost said that as a caveat of like, well, yeah, we're not fully formed right now and things aren't solidified and cemented and set in stone, and there's still room to grow. But that is a massive jump over 2 seasons.
Yeah, and the plan was never for this to be a microwaved situation, and yet somehow this happened extremely quickly, that the Thunder went from being a 58-loss team to a 57-win team. Once again, those 57 wins are washed away. The Thunder's got to go out and do the work, not just with their players and development within the team, but the front office has flexibility this summer. They have options this summer to solidify what this core of the team will look like this season and potentially seasons ahead. And so this is an opportunity for the Thunder, as you're pointing out, to try to get closer and closer to a complete team, knowing that they'll never have a perfect team.
Exactly. And having the humility to recognize that. And this leads me to another takeaway here. And it was looking forward, kind of going into the draft, recognizing that the Thunder has the 12th pick in this upcoming draft. And of course, you're talking to the general manager of a team. So a question's going to come up of like, what are you looking for? What do you want? And Sam's response was, when it comes to the draft, we're looking for the best fit for us.
Right.
That is team, organizationally, like everything about it. We're looking for the best fit for us. And I thought that was a really good kind of step back, rather than being like, we might want a big, we might want a guard, we need like a quick, it's like.
Or even like, we need somebody that can play our style of play.
Right.
Like, he didn't even mean it that way. He meant it more like, who fits into what we want to be about as competitors, what we want to be about as people inside of this building, what we want to be about as citizens. He didn't even get into like skill sets or anything like that.
No, nothing like that. And he also, earlier, I believe, in the press conference, he pointed out, look, if they're not resilient, we're not drafting them. Like we have a whole team full of super resilient guys who are all about the team. And that's because that's who we look for. That we have a certain type of guy that we're looking for in the draft. And that's the goal coming out of every single draft, is not just finding the best player, but finding the best fit for the organization.
Yeah, and the Thunder has the number 12 pick in this draft. That's extremely rare for a team coming off having the second best record in the NBA to have a lottery pick. And so this is quite an opportunity. That pick doesn't just represent a chance to draft a young player, but also represents an asset to be used.
Yeah.
The Thunder have a number of assets that can be utilized in myriad different ways. They can trade up, they can trade back, they can trade out, they can trade for someone, they can stay and pick at 12. Like, this presents an opportunity to find someone that is the best fit. I want to get a little bit of your perspective as a former player, Paris, of like, you played high school, college, AAU with friends. Were there people that you, like, Sam made a point to say, like, we're not going to get the most talented person, but like, can you think of players that you played with or against that you were like, yeah, they're really talented, but they can't play the way that we play, or they can't like fit into our team?
Totally. Totally. And I think I could think of several examples, but
okay, name them right now.
We're going to list them all. Moral of the story is, like, especially in college, you would see, because recruiting is just such a big thing. That's where you can, like, that's where team building like starts to become like an actual thing, right? And so you could tell the coaches that were like, I just want to accumulate as many good players as possible. And those were the teams that you looked at them while they were warming up and you were like, oh my gosh, that looks like that team is going to be like really good.
Yeah.
But they would always finish very mediocre
Yeah.
by the end of the season. And it was just because it never jived. It was never about the team. It was always about the accumulation of as many
talent.
good
Yeah.
parts as possible.
Yeah.
And just to brag on my school a little bit, I mean, you
Belmont.
don't have
Yeah.
to give me much of a window to do this. But shout out to Belmont, because I think our group, the reason why we were so successful was because everyone was bought into the team. Everyone
Yeah.
was bought into what our coach was saying and the ultimate goal. And like, I didn't play a ton, like I didn't start every single game, but that was because we were successful.
Yeah.
And like, if I demanded more, if I tried to like, why am I not playing more? Why am I not, and that would have disrupted everything. And so I think it's all about the success historically always comes from having the right people versus just the best players. It's a very, very like distinct line in history of just
Right.
like, the best fit is always going to be the best option.
Yeah, and so this is another opportunity then to try to add another person into this group and another chance for, things to shift. As we talked about earlier, like that mixing board thing.
Totally.
Like whoever this is, if they pick somebody at 12 or if they, bring somebody in through free agency or whatever, like all of those little buttons on the dial change a little bit.
Yeah.
But once again, it's not all totally imposed from on high. It's like the team organically kind of figuring that stuff out too, because, these players are all going to get better. Just like this year, Lou Dort took a little bit of like a tightening of his role, which really allowed J-Dub and Chet to flourish.
Exactly. And so it's a very delicate puzzle that has to be put together, but something that historically Sam Presti has been very, very good at orchestrating and making sure that everybody has kind of the right pieces put together.
Yes.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk about, and there's a lot of things. So like, we're not hitting every single thing in this press conference.
Yeah. We're not going to go 2.5 hours.
We could. But so just for your sake,
our producer Bishop is very pleased by that, by the way.
He's smiling.
We're not going for 2.5 hours.
So if you want more information, please go to OKCthunder.com. Check out Nick's article. He wrote a great article that kind of succinctly recapped everything that Sam talked about. And then if that's not enough and you really do want to hear 2.5 hours, it's all on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can go and listen to it on the OKC Thunder channel, and it's all there from start to finish. But the last thing I want to talk about, and it's something that we hinted at a little bit earlier in the pod, there are no silver platters in OKC. This was part of Sam's closing thoughts here. He said, there are no silver platters in OKC. We're going to have to take it. And this was kind of in context of, we don't know what next season holds, and we don't know what's next, but we do know we're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to be very intentional about going and getting it.
Yeah. You have no idea what circumstances are going to be thrown your way, what things that broke your way this year aren't next year, what things didn't break your way this year are going to break for you next year. You have to be ready and fluid enough to handle all of those things. It's why we've seen the Thunder as an organization take the tack that they've taken in terms of expanding options as opposed to contracting them, keeping guys engaged and in the rotation inside the team, keeping them pumped with minutes in the G League level. If you think about a guy like Ousmane Dieng, you got to kind of have that approach to be ready for anything, and the resilience is all that's behind it, because this team understands that in this loaded Western Conference, I mean, everybody is coming for you every single night.
Exactly.
And so there are no gimmies in this league.
And this is a lunch pail organization and part of a lunch pail city that is ready to roll up its sleeves, get to work, and is not going to shy away from anything that is going to be required to make sure that they're setting themselves up for success next season. So a lot to look forward to next season, a lot to digest from Sam's press conference, but some really, really good stuff in here. And it makes you really excited for the draft, for summer league, for the upcoming training camp. I mean, like really, the future is very, very bright in Oklahoma City. before we go, we do have to give you what's coming up. There are a couple of really cool things coming up. Let's start with the podcast.
Okay.
Let's start with the podcast. So keep an eye out on the Thunder Basketball Universe podcast, all the channels, wherever you're listening to your podcast, because we've been working on some really cool stuff. A really fun project coming down the line, and you'll see it here shortly.
It's kind of a group project within the entire Thunder sort of broadcast digital team, and we're going to be delivering some I guess mini pods for you that are player centric. So really diving into what made each guy successful throughout the course of the season, some key moments from their year, and also looking ahead at what's coming up for them. What we can look to in the future for them, because these are all developmental players. No matter what the age of the guy, they are still developmental. And so these are really nice, like, kind of bottle episodes and deep dives, but there's a good string of them that are coming to you.
Oh man, it's going to be really, really awesome. You're going to get a chance to hear every single one of them soon. Stats, quotes, highlights. I mean, really everything.
And you get to hear from the guys too. A lot of this is centered around what they said at their end of season interviews. So I know we did that podcast after end of season interviews, but you can only recap so much of an 8-hour session of players streaming through the room. This is an opportunity to really dive a little deeper into each one of these players that made this past season so special and are obviously primed to continue to make what's really brewing in OKC so nice and special.
Yeah, this has been a really fun project. So keep an eye out on the Thunder Basketball Universe kind of channel there on YouTube to see those episodes coming soon your way. The second thing we want to talk about is another project we've been working on. We've been booked and busy this off season.
You think once the broadcasts are done that we're just off
doing
whatever?
Like, no. Head out? No. You think we just go to a beach somewhere? No, we are here working for you. We're smiling. This is all good stuff. So the big project that we've been working on is another OKC Thunder Films project, and this one titled Bismack.
Bismack.
I wonder who it's about.
I think this guy, he's pretty tall. Bismack Biyombo. We got some exclusive access with Bismack, some incredible footage, and an opportunity to tell a pretty legendary story. This is a guy who had to make an extreme risk and sacrifice. He's the oldest child in his family, leaving his whole family in the Democratic Republic of the Congo to start this journey in the incredible saga of his father sort of helping him and encouraging him to get out of the country to pursue his basketball dreams, the winding road that happened throughout the course of his journey, his father being such an important touch point throughout the entirety of this path. Tragedy strikes the family, and Bismack decides that he is going to pour his time, his life, his heart into giving back to his home country in a way that honors his family. And so we get to tell that story, and I think you guys are really going to love it. June 7th is when it debuts at Dead Center Film Festival here in Oklahoma City at Harkins Theater downtown. So you're not going to want to miss that. For those of you who are not in Oklahoma City, we'll have this for you online everywhere you want. In the days that follow June 7th. So be on the lookout there.
We've been working super hard on this project. Bismack has been absolutely amazing at kind of, revealing all of this and every aspect of his story, which is fascinating, truly, from the time he was born to now. And that is an Easter egg. You will have to watch the film to really understand that. But truly, it's such an inspiring and just heartfelt story that you're going to want to watch. So be on the lookout. Bismack debuts Dead Center Film Festival on June 7th, and we are so excited about it.
We'll be there. So come out and see us.
That's right. That's right. But until then, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up, and catch you later.